The fabrication of heritage out of whole cloth might not seem like the strongest foundation upon which to build an ultra luxury auto brand, and yet it's exactly what Mercedes Benz did in the early 2000s with Maybach, a batch exhumed from the murkiest depths of the industry's forgotten past and imbued with new meaning by way of an eye-watering window sticker, intended to serve the billion hedge fund and tantalize the spiritual crowd more attended to hip-hop than the S&P 500. Maybach's range of super sedans rolled onto the scene with the kind of brazen confidence only a world-conquering corporate parent like Daimler could bring to bear. But by the end of the decade, the Maybach name was discarded, tattered by weighty expectations, and unbowed by the same soaring success granted to its long-entrenched rivals. The Maybach story represents one of the most spectacular and costly automotive failures of the 21st century. Despite that notorious reputation, it also served as a surprisingly enduring platform for rebirth, with Mercedes-Benz successfully resurrecting the nameplate for a third try at ultra-high-end glory that culminated an all-time sales record last year. What sets these two efforts apart, the crash and the comeback, other than the 10-year gap between them, and why did the portraitly cautious and calculated tactician that Daimler once again roll the dice on a brand that had seemingly run its course not once but twice before? The answer lies in the intense market pressure that exists for independent automakers like Mercedes-Benz to fill every possible product niche or perish in the process. The modern Maybach tale begins with two of Daimler's primary rivals. The British auto industry was in shambles at the end of 1990s, so two of its greatest prizes, Bentley and Rolls-Royce, known for their six-digit sedans, were sold off to the highest bidders, who just happened to be Volkswagen and BMW respectively. Suddenly, Mercedes-Benz found itself on the outside looking in at the recession-proof profits generated by catering to those whose bank accounts are as massive and stable like the granite bedrock on which the entire economy is anchored. It's here that the company turned inward and began to plot its way to seat at the same table. That's when they found Maybach. The Maybach brand was originally established in 1909 by Wilhelm Maybach, one of Gottlieb Daimler's earliest collaborators. In addition to designing engines for Zeppelins and other aircraft, Maybach also attached its name to a line of cars aimed at the aristocracy, an effort that lasted until the end of the World War II, when the Maybach name went dormant. Deep in the bowels of history archives, a link between Maybach and Mercedes-Benz was rediscovered, polished, and pronounced good enough to launch an entirely new line of luxury cars. Starting with a concept presented at the Tokyo Motor Show in 1997, the company committed to producing a pair of sedans within the next 5 years bearing the Maybach name. Finally, Mercedes-Benz have an above S-class beachhead in the battle for the Shawford affections of landed gentry and oligarchs the world over. When the Maybach 52 and the Maybach 62 arrived in 2002, their most distinctive aspects were their appearance and their price. Long, bulbous, and remarkably conservative in terms of design, the two models represented an ostentatiously anonymous way to spend between $350,000 and $430,000. There was no question that the Maybach twins represented the pinnacle of what Mercedes-Benz could achieve in terms of comfort and cutting-edge technology. The cars were stuffed in absurd amounts of leather and wood, every creature comfort for the cuddled occupants, while the standard twin-turbo V12 churned out a hammer-fisted 542 horsepower and 664 pound-feet of torque. But what was missing, however, was a compelling reason to pay so much for cars that meant so little in the popular consciousness. Unlike the masterful management of Rolls-Royce, which had effectively disguised the use of modern BMW components under a regal skin reflective of the automaker's globally revered design traditions, or Volkswagen's ability to marry its own technical powerness with Bentley's history of offering an exciting drive. The Maybach's humdrum styling and sedate drive couldn't escape nor transit its S-Class roots. The cars came across as a self-serious alternative to an already excellent and considerably less expensive automobile. This impression wasn't helped by stunts like shipping the first Maybach 62 across the Atlantic in a glass coffin on board the Queen Elizabeth II and then dropping it via helicopter in front of a prominent Wall Street hotel for all the world to see. Sales began to fall almost immediately. The brand peaked at 600 examples in 2002, and a handful of years later, the number was sell on its way to just barely breaking 150. During the same period, both Bentley and Rolls-Royce posted record years, solidifying a buyer base that Maybach simply couldn't quote. In 2005, the S-Class received a major platform upgrade, but the 57 and the 62 were left behind. receiving a mighty V12 but finding themselves stuck with the same older tech and features that now compared poorly to the Benz flagship, more competitive offerings. The writing was on the wall at this point for Maybach. Not even stars like Jay-Z and Birdman, who took liking to the folding rear roof of the large gas 2008 Landlord model, were able to pop up the brand. With sales of the Maybach dwindling to double digits in the US, Daimler announced a sell down in 2011 to May remaining inventory. Factoring its billion-dollar plus development cost, it was later revealed that the company had taken a loss of more than $400,000 on each of the 3,000 or so Maybachs sold worldwide. Billion-dollar corporate bundles still sting even years later. But surprisingly, the brass at Mercedes Benz never entirely gave up on the Maybach dream. Even as its ashes fell around them, Daimler excesses paralleled with a potential British partner of its own, Aston Martin, as a potential save of the sedan 2010. And that proposed arrangement failed to bear fruit, the company once again turned to the S Class. Only this time it was to add the Maybach name to the latter's trunk lid rather than absecond with its platform. In 2014, the world was introduced to Mercedes Maybach, a family of four-door sedans that finally recognized the richest vein of company's heritage by making its long-standing flagship the basis of its anti-Bentley efforts. Linking the Maybach and the S-Class together avoided both the massive development costs that had drained Daimler's account as well as any embarrassing technology gap that, thanks to a shared development track, stretched Pullman and models joined the S500, S550, and the S600 Maybachs in market around the world, each stepping above the already opulent S-Class to deliver small volume excesses to those who could afford its charms. Enough people ponied for the Maybach Redux from Mercedes-Benz to take another step forward with the concept when the S-Class was redesigned for the 2021 model year, with now exclusive V12 engine on the order sheet and styling differences, pushing the vehicle that much further from its standard sibling. The Mercedes Maybach brand finally appears to have found its place in the luxury car pantheon. This impression is further bolstered by the boldness of the Mercedes Maybach GLS 600, which arrived the same year. More brazenly styled than the SUV, it is based on the full-size Hall is an echo of the original GL class Maybach that never saw the light of the day. Recently announced electric SUV, the EQS SUV, also joins them as the Maybach model, naming EQS SUV Maybach. Pricing has played an important role in the Maybach's rebirth. Although it's still possible to spend a half a million or so on the Pullman limousine, more modest options are available under $200,000. This decision to broaden the Maybach customer base plays directly into Daimler decision to double its sales in 2021 after a ban in 2022 that saw 12,000 examples find their way to new home despite the ravages of the pandemic. Surpassing 10,000 units a year is a far cry from the 66 or so Maybachs that limped out of the dealerships a decade ago. It's testament to Mercedes-Benz's steadfastness that the company decided to not walk away from the massive investment it made in Maybach, instead spending several years working out how to make the nameplate more palatable to the few who could afford its charms. While it's unsurprising that the market for $200,000 cars is significantly broader than the one for $400,000 cars, more important was the decision to link the Maybach to the S-Class, not just in terms of platform but also brand equity. This virtually ensures profitability given the sunk cost of development has already been amortized across thousands of S-Class sedans worldwide. It's also cautionary tale about believing one owns hype, banishing the Maybach's name not so significant heritage to a secondary role remove the brand from the embarrassing position of being directly compared to and potentially failing to compete with for a second time with Bentley and Rolls-Royce. When given a legitimate chance to make a name for itself rather than coast on the ghostly coattails of a long vanished automaker, Maybach finally discovered it could succeed on its own merits.